"Oh my God, sir. Are you okay? Somebody help." Maya William dropped her canvas tote and rushed toward the man who had collapsed on the sidewalk. The man stirred. His lips trembled, and his eyes fluttered open for a brief, flickering second. "Help, please," he gasped, voice hoarse. Before Maya could respond, his eyes rolled back, and he slumped fully against the pavement, body limp. "Sir, sir," she shouted, tapping his shoulder, her hands trembling. No response. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911 with fingers that shook. "Yes. I need an ambulance 8th Avenue and 133rd Street. A man's collapsed. He's not responsive." Panic rose in her throat. She grabbed her phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "Yes, I'm on 8th and 133rd. A man collapsed. No pulse. I think he's not breathing right." Within 5 minutes, the wailing siren broke the quiet. A paramedic team rolled in, and one of the nurses, a young woman with braids tucked into her cap, immediately took over. They checked vitals, strapped oxygen on the man's face, and started CPR. As they loaded him into the ambulance, the nurse looked at Maya. "Are you the one who found him?" "Yes." "Then please come with us. He may need a witness, or you may have seen what happened." Maya hesitated. She looked at the man again. He seemed so fragile now, despite the expensive suit and polished shoes. She nodded, climbed in, and the doors slammed shut. The ride was a blur of beeping monitors and clipped medical commands. Maya sat to the side, pressed into the corner of the ambulance as the man's chest rose and fell in shallow jerks. When they reached Street Luke's hospital, the gurney wheeled past her with urgency, disappearing through double doors. Maya was left standing in the waiting area under fluorescent lights, her apron still stained from a 12-hour shift. She should have left, but something in her gut told her to stay. 20 minutes passed. 30. Then a woman burst into the ER. Tall, elegant, with silver hair swept into a chignon, pearls at her neck, and fury in her eyes. "Where is he? Where is my son?" she barked. A nurse pointed her toward the intake room. But before the woman stepped through, her eyes landed on Maya. She paused. Her gaze swept over Maya's coffee-stained apron, tired eyes, brown skin. "You," she said sharply. Maya blinked, startled. "Mom, you heard him, didn't you?" "No. I found him on the street. He collapsed. I called for help." "You touched him?" The woman snapped, stepping closer. "You people always take advantage of weakness. My son's wallet better still be on him." Maya's breath caught. "I didn't take anything. I helped." Before she could finish, the woman slapped her across the face. The sharp crack echoed through the waiting room. Maya staggered backward, stunned, one hand pressed to her cheek. "Please," she whispered, tears burning her eyes. But the woman wasn't done. She grabbed a fistful of Maya's hair, tugging her head back viciously. "If he wakes up worse than before," she hissed, "I'll make sure you never work in this city again. I'll bury your name in places you don't even know exist." "No." Maya's knees buckled. "Please. I didn't mean to cause harm. I was just trying to help." "Help?" the woman spat. "You think people like you help people like us?" The nurses finally intervened, pulling her away, calming the scene. But the damage was done. Maya stood shaking in the corner, trying to catch her breath. Every nerve screamed, not from pain, but from memory. Because this wasn't the first time someone looked at her and assumed the worst. She remembered being 10, clutching a lunchbox she didn't pack because her mom couldn't afford food that week. A teacher had accused her of stealing it off another student's desk. No apology came when the truth came out. She remembered the landlord who refused to fix their heat in the dead of winter. "Y'all people are always cold, always complaining," he had said. And now this. She had saved a man's life. And still, she was seen as a threat. Wesley Carter lay unconscious in Trauma Room B. His vitals were stabilizing, but his mind wandered in dreams he couldn't wake from. A white hallway, a child's laugh echoing, a woman's hand in his, and then a scream, tires skidding, shattered glass. His chest sized. He gasped and opened his eyes. A nurse hovered beside him. "You're awake," she said gently. "Where?" "You're in the hospital. You collapsed. It's okay now." Wesley blinked slowly. The girl. There was a girl. Yes, the nurse replied. She's the one who called 911. She stayed until you got here. What's her name? She didn't give one. Just said she saw you fall. Wesley tried to sit up, but the nurse laid a hand on his arm. Sir, you need to rest. He stared at the ceiling, his mind drifting back to another voice, smaller, younger. His daughter, Lily, singing in the back seat. His wife, Dana, humming along. That was before the black ice, before the world spun sideways, before everything shattered. Since their deaths 2 years ago, Wesley hadn't known peace. Sleep was rare, silence was constant. But tonight, for the first time in months, someone had reached into that silence. A stranger. Find her, he whispered. Sir? Please, I need to know who she is. The nurse gave a nod and stepped out. Wesley exhaled deeply, his chest tightening with emotion. He closed his eyes again, but not in fear. This time, there was something else. A spark. Then, her hands trembled as she pulled her phone from her pocket, thumb hovering over the mom contact. But she didn't press call. Not yet. She sat down in the corner of the waiting room, legs drawn to her chest, apron still stained with another day's labor. She whispered to herself, I should have walked away. But she hadn't. She had chosen kindness, humanity, compassion. What Maya William didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that this small, trembling act of goodness, this decision to stay and help, would unravel the darkness in another man's life. And in doing so, it would change her own life forever. Wesley Carter sat upright in his hospital bed, staring out the frosted window. Snow flurried lightly across the city skyline, dusting rooftops like powdered sugar. But he barely saw it. His thoughts remained anchored to the girl, the one who stayed. He didn't remember much, just her voice, soft and urgent, and the warmth of her hands against his freezing skin. And the way she whispered, You're not alone. No one had said that to him in 2 years. Not since Dana and Lily were taken from him on that black ice road in Vermont. Not since their laughter was replaced by sirens and the mechanical beep of hospital monitors. David, his assistant, entered the room, crisp in his tailored coat, holding a tablet and coffee. You should rest, sir. No, I'm fine, Wesley muttered. You flatlined for 30 seconds, David said, placing the tablet on the tray. That's not nothing. I said I'm fine. Wesley rubbed his temples. Did you find her? David sighed. We're pulling footage from nearby traffic cams. EMT report confirms she called 911 from a prepaid phone. Name unknown. But she rode with you in the ambulance. We should have her soon. Wesley's eyes narrowed. I need to speak to her. Malay, I don't think that's wise, especially after your mother's reaction. Wesley looked at him sharply. What did she do? David hesitated. She confronted the girl in the ER. Loudly. Security intervened. Wesley felt a flare of anger rise in his chest, but he pressed it down. His mother had always believed protection looked like control. He turned toward the window again. She didn't have to help me, David. She could have kept walking. People usually do. I know. Wesley closed his eyes. She saved my life. David didn't reply. He just handed him the coffee and sat down. Across the city, Maya walked the long hallway of her apartment building, her steps slow, head lowered, her face still ached from the slap. Her scalp throbbed where the woman's fingers had yanked her hair, but the worst wound was internal, the humiliation. She entered the apartment quietly. Her mother, Olivia, was asleep in the recliner, a crocheted blanket covering her lap. The small TV flickered with an old Western movie. Maya tiptoed in, dropping her bag on the kitchen table. She stared at her reflection in the microwave door. The bruise on her cheekbone was faint now, but she still saw it. She still heard that voice, sharp, venomous, filled with assumption and disgust. You people always find a way in, don't you? Maya turned away from the reflection. Her stomach churned with shame and fury. She made tea chamomile, her mother's favorite, and sat beside Olivia, gently waking her. Mama, she whispered. Olivia stirred. You home late. There was an emergency. Olivia blinked, then looked closer at Maya's face. What happened to you? Maya hesitated, then shook her head. Nothing important. You got hit. I'm fine. Olivia reached out, touched Maya's hand. You've always carried too much for your age. Maya swallowed hard. I saw a man collapse in the street. I helped. Called 911. Went to the hospital with him. Her mother nodded slowly, waiting. His mother came. Thought I'd hurt him. She didn't hold back. Didn't listen either. I suppose. No. Olivia let out a tired sigh. People don't always want truth. They want comfort. And sometimes hate is more comfortable than gratitude. Maya's eyes burned. All I did was help. I know, baby. Olivia pulled her hand into her lap. But help from the wrong person? That threatens the order of things. Though. Maya looked away. She said she'd make sure I lost my job. I don't even know who he is. I just saw someone hurting. And that's what makes you different, Olivia said. Most people only move when the camera's on. The tea had gone cold. Maya stood and poured it down the sink. Later that night, as she lay in bed, she searched the hospital's patient intake list online. No names listed. Only patient numbers. She had no idea who the man was. No way to find out. But something in her wouldn't let it go. Maybe it was the look in his eyes right before he passed out. The desperation. The same kind her mother had when the pain first started. The same kind Maya had when begging the Medicaid office not to cut off Olivia's care. She turned on her side, pulled the covers over her head, and tried to sleep. Meanwhile, Wesley watched security footage on David's tablet. The resolution was poor, but there she was running across the street, apron flapping, ponytail bouncing. She knelt beside him, spoke, dialed her phone, stayed with him. She didn't hesitate, Wesley said quietly. No, David agreed. She didn't. Wesley pointed to the timestamp. That's the moment. Right there. That's where everything changed. You sure about this? David asked. She's not from our world. I'm not from our world anymore either, Wesley said. His heart monitor beeped steadily. He pressed a hand to his chest, where Dana used to rest her head at night, where Lily used to fall asleep during thunderstorms. That part of him had gone quiet for 2 years. But today, something cracked open, not healed, not yet, but stirred. Find her, he said again. David nodded. Wesley looked out the window once more, eyes tracing the falling snow. Somewhere out there, a girl with fire in her eyes and pain on her face had stepped into his darkness without being asked, and walked away without waiting for thanks. She deserved more than a slap and a warning. She deserved the truth. If you feel for Maya, hit like and comment where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone near you might be watching too. The next morning, Maya woke before the sun rose. Harlem was still half asleep. The streets dim. The sidewalks glazed with thin ice. Inside the apartment, silence lingered like morning fog. Olivia was still sleeping, her breathing soft, and even from the recliner where she'd dozed off again after her pain meds kicked in. Maya moved through the tiny kitchen, making instant coffee and buttering toast, trying to pretend her face didn't still ache or that the humiliation from the night before hadn't burned into her bones. But when she looked in the mirror above the sink, the swelling on her cheek told a different story. The woman's voice echoed again in her mind. Girls like you should know their place. Maya closed her eyes. No. She couldn't let this morning be like the others. She had a shift to work, bills to pay, a mother to care for. Pain didn't earn you time off in her world. You swallowed it. You showed up. You endured. She tied her apron, stuffed a protein bar into her coat pocket, and left the apartment. By 7:15, she was at Mel's Diner, small, greasy, the kind of place old men drank black coffee until noon and tourists stopped in hoping to experience real New York. Her manager, Raoul, gave her a look as she clocked in. You okay, Maya? He asked, his eyes briefly resting on her cheek. Ran into a door. She lied with a practiced smile. He grunted. Well, that door must have had a hell of a grudge. She poured coffee, wiped counters, and smiled at strangers. But inside, she kept glancing toward the door. Expecting what? That woman? The police? Her job termination notice? Instead, 3 hours into her shift, the door jingled open and a man in a charcoal coat stepped inside. Tall, clean-shaven, expensive looking but not flashy. His eyes scanned the diner until they found her. David. Maya stiffened. He approached her booth slowly. Maya William? Her hand tightened on the coffee pot. Who's asking? My name is David Lynn. I'm an associate of Wesley Carter. He's the man you helped yesterday. The name hit her like a bolt of lightning. Wait. Wesley Carter? As in, yes, CEO of Carter Global. Maya blinked. That name was on subway ads, financial reports, charity galas. The kind of man people like her only saw from a distance. Untouchable, unreal. I didn't know who he was, she murmured. David gave a slight nod. He knows, and he'd like to speak with you, personally. Maya hesitated. I don't think your family wants me anywhere near him. A shadow passed over David's expression. His mother acted on her own. Mr. Carter wasn't aware of what happened. He was still unconscious. She hit me, Maya said softly. Accused me, threatened me. David's jaw tightened. And he's deeply sorry for that. He didn't send me to clean up a mess. He sent me because he owes you a debt. And because he can't stop thinking about what you did. Maya's breath caught in her throat. David handed her a card. He's staying in the penthouse suite at Street Luke's. He'll be there until tomorrow evening. No obligation. But if you'd like to talk, he'll make time for you. With that, he turned and left the diner. Maya stood frozen for several minutes. Raoul passed by, raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask. When her shift ended, she found herself walking not home, not to the bus stop but toward the hospital. She didn't know what she expected. Maybe closure, maybe answers, maybe just a moment of human dignity after being treated like trash. At the hospital, she gave her name. The receptionist recognized her instantly. You're the one who saved Mr. Carter, the woman said, smiling. He's been asking for you since sunrise. Maya nodded, heart thudding in her chest, and followed a nurse to the private suite on the top floor. When she entered the room, Wesley Carter was sitting upright, reading a file. He looked tired, but present, his eyes blue, sharp lifted the moment she walked in. You came, he said. Maya stayed near the door. I wasn't going to, but curiosity wins, he said with a faint smile. She stepped closer, cautious. I didn't know who you were, she said. I just saw a man who needed help. I know. He closed the file and placed it aside. That's what makes it remarkable. Maya looked at him. Your mother. She thinks I was trying to scam you. Wesley's eyes darkened. She's wrong, and she'll apologize. Publicly, if needed. Maya shook her head. That's not why I came. Then why? She hesitated. Because I couldn't stop thinking about your eyes when you collapsed. Like you weren't just scared. You looked gone. Wesley stared at her for a long moment. I lost my wife and daughter 2 years ago. Car accident. I've been surviving, I guess. Not living. Not feeling. Yesterday, I hit a wall. His voice cracked slightly. And then you were there, he continued. This stranger with soft hands and fire in her voice, telling me I wasn't alone. You reached into something I thought I buried. Maya didn't know what to say. Wesley leaned forward. Would you let me thank you properly? No obligations. Just dinner. A safe place. No cameras. No noise. Just 2 people talking. Maya's instinct was to say no. Run. Protect herself. But her heart whispered something else. Maybe not every door needed to be slammed shut. Maybe one act of kindness could open another. I'll think about it, she said. Wesley nodded. That's all I ask. Maya stood on the platform at 125th Street, the cold wind pulling at the hem of her coat. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of the business card David had handed her, now softened at the corners. Carter Global. Wesley Carter. Personal office. The lettering was embossed, expensive, but restrained much like the man himself. She hadn't slept much the night before. Her mind had replayed their conversation on a loop. His calm voice, the sorrow behind his eyes, the invitation to dinner. He didn't push, didn't charm her with wealth or status. Just asked. genuinely, as if he truly meant what he said. She boarded the train and sat near the window, watching the city pass by in smudged gray and faded graffiti. She wasn't sure what tonight would bring, but after what she'd endured at the hospital, the slap, the threat some part of her needed to reclaim her own dignity. To look this man in the eyes, not as a servant, not as a suspect, but as an equal, as a woman who had saved his life. That evening, Wesley Carter stood in front of the penthouse mirror, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt. He wasn't sure why he was nervous. It wasn't a date. It wasn't a business dinner. It was something in between and something entirely different. For the first time in a long while, he wanted to be seen. Not as a CEO, not as a grieving widower, but as a man. A man who had fallen to the pavement, broken, and had been lifted by her. He glanced at the table, where a small arrangement of white lilies, Saturday Dana's favorite flower. He hadn't bought them for over 2 years, but tonight, they belonged on the table again. David entered quietly. "She's downstairs." Wesley turned. "Send her up, and stay out unless I buzz." "Oh." David gave a respectful nod. "Understood." Moments later, Maya stepped off the elevator into the quiet luxury of the penthouse. She wore a simple navy dress, thrifted probably, with a coat too thin for the weather and boots that had seen better days. But she walked tall. Wesley stood as she entered the dining area. "You came." "I said I'd think about it," she replied, a small smirk tugging at her lips. "Turns out I'm a fast thinker." He chuckled, gesturing to the table. "Please." She sat across from him. The space was warm, the lighting soft, nothing grandiose, just carefully chosen quiet. "This is a lot," Maya said honestly, glancing around. "I wasn't sure what would make you comfortable, so I aimed for neutral," Wesley replied. "No press, no noise, just dinner." Maya nodded slowly. "That's fair." He poured them both water, then Saturday. "I meant what I said yesterday. You saved my life." "You keep saying that, because it's true." Maya folded her hands. "And your mother still thinks I tried to hurt you." Wesley's face grew serious. "She's not well. Since Dana and Lily passed, she's held on too tightly. To everything. She lost her granddaughter, her daughter-in-law, and honestly her son. The one who cared about people. About life. The man you met yesterday? He was buried beneath a mountain of pain." Maya looked at him carefully. "And who are you now?" "I'm not sure," he said, voice low. "But I know I don't want to be the man who almost died on a sidewalk and let it mean nothing." They ate in silence for a while. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, warm bread. Simple, but delicious. "So," Maya said, cutting her asparagus, "what happens now? You send me a thank you card? A donation to my church? I get a check and disappear?" Wesley's eyebrows lifted. "Do you want that?" "No," she said honestly. "I want to understand why this happened, why someone like you, with everything, ended up face first on a sidewalk." He took a sip of water. "Because everything isn't what people think it is." Maya watched him. "Tell me." He leaned back in his chair. "The day Dana and Lily died, I had just postponed a weekend trip with them to finalize a merger. I said I'd join them the next day. I never did. That decision haunts me. It plays on loop every time I close my eyes." Maya swallowed. "You blame yourself." "I do." "You shouldn't." "Oh." "Try telling my heart that." A long silence fell between them. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was real. Human. After a moment, Maya spoke. "I know what guilt feels like. I've been carrying it since I was 19. I left my mom alone for a night. Just one. And that's when she fell down the stairs, broke her spine. She hasn't walked since." Wesley's eyes softened. "That's not your fault either." She shrugged. "Try telling my heart that." "No." They shared a quiet smile, two souls bruised by different storms but walking the same path through the rubble. Suddenly, the elevator dinged. Heavy footsteps approached. The door opened. Wesley stood instantly, face tightening. His mother. "What is she doing here?" Mrs. Carter snapped, eyes landing on Maya like a hawk. "Mother," Wesley barked, his tone sharp. I warned you, she hissed at Maya. Didn't I? Do you think a dress and a dinner buys you forgiveness for whatever scheme you're running? That's enough, Wesley thundered. Maya rose to her feet, voice calm but firm. I didn't come here to fight. I came because your son asked me to, and I stayed because he's not the man you think he is, not anymore. Mrs. Carter stepped forward. You don't belong in this world, girl. Maya didn't flinch. Maybe not, but I belonged on that sidewalk when your son needed someone, and you weren't there. The silence was deafening. Wesley stepped between them. Mother, if you can't be civil, you can leave. Mrs. Carter's lips trembled with rage, but she turned and stormed out. The room exhaled. Wesley turned to Maya. I'm sorry. You don't have to protect me, she said. I've heard worse. I'm not protecting you. I'm standing beside you. That was the first time Maya believed it. The next morning, sunlight broke through the kitchen window of Maya's apartment like an uninvited guest. The golden beams stretched across the worn linoleum, reaching the couch where Olivia slept, a slight wheeze in her breath. Maya moved quietly through the space, her mind still replaying the moment Wesley said those words. I'm not protecting you. I'm standing beside you. She hadn't expected him to stand up to his mother, especially not in front of her, especially not for her. It had shaken something in her. A part of her that had long believed men like Wesley Carter didn't see women like her as anything but obstacles, shadows, servants, or threats. But he looked her in the eyes. He listened. That alone made her feel more seen than she had in years. She poured coffee, then walked into the living room and sat beside her mother. How you feelin', Mama? Olivia stirred, blinking slowly. Like my spine took a joyride through hell, but I'm still here. Maya smiled. That's a blessing in itself. They sat in silence for a while, sipping weak coffee and listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. Olivia finally looked over. You okay, baby? You've got that look. What look? The one that says your world just tilted 5 degrees. Maya paused, then nodded. I had dinner with the man I helped. Olivia's brow rose. The one who collapsed? Wesley Carter. Turns out he's a billionaire. Olivia's cup stopped mid-air. The Wesley Carter? Yeah. May. And what on God's green earth was he doing in Harlem, collapsing like a rag doll? Maya chuckled. Long story. But he asked to see me again. Olivia narrowed her eyes. And you're thinking about it. I already did it. Olivia raised her brows higher. Well, damn. I thought it was going to be weird. A power play. But it wasn't. He talked to me. Really talked. You like him? Maya hesitated. It's not like that. I don't even know him. But he saw you, Olivia said quietly. That matters. Maya nodded slowly. Yeah, it does. Across town, Wesley sat in the sunroom of his family estate, a cup of black coffee untouched beside him. He had left the hospital late the night before, against doctor's orders. David stood nearby, holding a tablet. Press wants a statement about your hospitalization, David said. Tell them I had the flu. And your mother? She's been calling all morning. Wesley didn't look up. David continued. She'll be at the board meeting tomorrow. That's unavoidable. Wesley finally lifted his gaze. Let her come. I'm not hiding anymore. David studied him for a moment. You really changed, you know. Wesley took a breath. She changed me. Maya? He nodded. She reminded me that not all wounds are supposed to be hidden. Some deserve to be witnessed. David gave a rare smile. She's not the kind of woman who stays invisible for long. Wesley looked out the window. And I don't want her to. Later that afternoon, Maya returned to Mel's diner for her shift. The bells on the door jingled as she stepped in, greeted by the familiar smell of coffee, bacon, and frying oil. Raoul looked up from the counter. You're glowing. You get a raise I don't know about? Maya grinned. Nope, just good sleep. He gave her a skeptical look but didn't press. You're on section 3. And you've got a customer already. Maya walked toward the corner booth and froze. Sitting there was Wesley Carter, alone, dressed in a charcoal sweater and dark jeans. He looked completely out of place, and yet, not. Mr. Carter, she said, unsure whether to smile or panic. He stood, smiling gently. I was in the neighborhood. In Harlem? He shrugged. I was hungry. She couldn't help it, she laughed. You are the most overdressed man to ever order pancakes here. He gestured to the seat across from him. Join me. I'm on shift. I already cleared it with Raoul. Said I'd tip him enough to replace the coffee machine. Maya sighed, shaking her head. You rich folks really do live in a different world. He smiled. I'm trying to visit yours. She slid into the booth. Careful, you might like it. They ate together, sharing pancakes, eggs, and too many cups of coffee. The conversation was easy, warm. Wesley asked about her childhood, her dreams, her fears, and Maya found herself asking about his company, his music preferences, his favorite childhood books. You ever think about writing? He asked between bites. Maya blinked. What? The way you talk. It's poetic, honest. You make people lean in. She flushed. I used to write. Before Mama got sick. Before bills piled up. You should start again. I wouldn't know where to begin. Begin with that moment on the sidewalk, he said. That moment when you could have kept walking but you didn't. She looked at him for a long moment. Why are you really here, Wesley? He set down his fork. Because the last time I ignored a gut feeling, I lost my family. And my gut says, you're not finished in my life yet. Maya's breath caught. She couldn't tell if it was a promise or a warning, but something inside her whispered, don't run this time. 3 days later, Maya stood outside the Carter Global building, staring up at the glass and steel tower that cut into the Manhattan sky like a blade. It was the kind of building that made people like her feel small on purpose. Every polished window, every security checkpoint, every tailored suit walking in and out of those revolving doors whispered, you don't belong here. And yet here she was, wearing her best blouse and a thrifted blazer, heart pounding against her ribs like a drumbeat. In her hand, a visitor badge with her name printed in bold letters, Maya William. Underneath, smaller, guest of Wesley Carter. The receptionist had offered her water while she waited, but she couldn't drink. Her palms were too sweaty, her mouth too dry. She tried not to think about Olivia back home, about the past due notices on the kitchen table, about the whispers at the diner since Wesley had shown up. This wasn't just lunch or coffee. Wesley had asked her to come to his world, and she wasn't sure if she was stepping through a door or walking into a trap. The elevator opened with a soft chime. A woman in a sleek gray dress greeted her. Miss William, Mr. Carter is expecting you. Right this way. She followed silently through the executive floor. Every inch smelled of money, quiet phones, art that didn't look like art. Hardwood floors polished so clean she could see the worn tips of her shoes reflecting back at her. They stopped in front of a set of tall glass doors. The woman smiled, opened them, and gestured inside. He's waiting. Maya stepped in. The office was massive, 2 stories of glass, bookshelves, leather chairs, and a view of the skyline that stole her breath. And there, behind the desk, stood Wesley. Not in a suit today, but in a dark blue sweater, sleeves rolled, collar open, casual but sharp. He looked up and smiled like he'd been waiting all day just for her. You came, he said. You asked, she replied, keeping her voice steady. I wasn't sure if you would. I wasn't sure either. He moved around the desk and offered her a seat near the window. She sat carefully, clutching her purse like a shield. I didn't bring you here to impress you, he said. Good, because I'm not easily impressed. Wesley chuckled. That's becoming one of my favorite things about you. Maya tried not to smile, but it snuck out anyway. So, what is this? A proposal? Oh, her eyes narrowed. I'm not taking your money. I'm not offering it. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I'm offering you a job. Her mouth parted, but no words came. I've been thinking a lot about second chances, Wesley continued. About what it means to be seen. You gave me one without knowing who I was, without asking for anything in return. You saw a man suffering and you stayed. She swallowed. That's what decent people do. No, that's what extraordinary people do. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a leather portfolio, handing it to her. Inside was a job description. Executive Assistant. Department. Community Impact. Salary. More than triple. What she made at Mel's. Benefits. Flexibility. Opportunity. I'm starting a new division, he said. A foundation, real work, real impact. But I don't want someone with just credentials. I want someone with heart. Someone who knows how to listen, how to stand up, how to see people others ignore. Maya blinked, stunned. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. I know you've been fighting your whole life and haven't given up. I know you're loyal, honest, brave. She looked down at the portfolio. This isn't a favor? It's a beginning. Maya closed the folder slowly. And your mother? She'll love this. Wesley's jaw tightened. She'll have to learn to respect it. And you. Duh. And what if she doesn't? Then she won't be part of my future. The silence between them thickened. Not awkward, just full. Loaded with possibilities neither had dared voice before. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course, he replied. Take your time. She rose to leave, but paused at the door. Why me? She asked, turning back to him. Wesley stood as well. Because you remind me of who I used to be. Before the money. Before the grief. You look at the world like it still has hope in it. Her voice softened. And do you believe that again? He didn't smile this time, but his eyes were steady. I'm starting to. Maya walked out of Carter Global with the portfolio clutched to her chest, her steps slower than before. Outside, the city buzzed on, unaware that anything had changed. But to Maya, the world felt different. Bigger. Not because of the offer, but because of what it represented. A door had opened, and this time, no one had slammed it shut in her face. As she rounded the corner onto 54th Street, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new text. I meant what I said. Maya, this is only the beginning. WC. She stared at the screen, then tucked it into her pocket and kept walking. She wasn't sure where the road would lead. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like it was hers. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of the full-length mirror inside her new office, a modest, sunlit space on the 22nd floor of Carter Global, overlooking a slice of Central Park. Her desk was still bare, except for a framed photo of Olivia and a chipped mug from Mel's diner that she refused to part with. She straightened her blazer, still unsure if it fit her or if she fit it. You're early, a voice said from the doorway. Wesley leaned casually against the frame, holding 2 cups of coffee. One was her order. Almond milk. No sugar. Extra cinnamon. I figured first day meant first impressions, she replied, taking the cup with a smile. You already made yours 3 weeks ago in the snow, on a sidewalk. Maya rolled her eyes but chuckled. Still holding that over my head? Just keeping you humble. They sipped in silence for a moment. Then Wesley said, How's Olivia? Maya's expression warmed. She's good. She called her sister in Atlanta for the first time in 5 years. Says she might visit if the pain doesn't act up. That's good, he nodded. Maybe we can find her a better physical therapist. I've got someone I trust private practice. Wesley, she began, voice cautious. He raised a hand. Just information. You don't have to take it. She softened. Thank you. He smiled, then nodded toward the hallway. Orientation starts in 10 minutes. You'll meet your project team. I told them you're not the kind of boss who talks just to fill air. I'm not a boss. You are now. Maya stepped into the conference room to find 6 people waiting. A mix of ages, races, backgrounds exactly how she'd imagined a real community team should look. She introduced herself, her voice steady but kind. Then she began her pitch. Our job isn't to save anyone, she said. It's to see them, to listen, to figure out where the system failed and what we can do differently. They nodded, taking notes, already leaning in. As she spoke, Wesley watched from behind the tinted glass of the corridor. He didn't need to micromanage. She had it. She always had. Across town, a storm was brewing. Inside a private club in the Upper East Side, Elizabeth Carter sat at a marble table, flanked by 2 board members of Carter Global. Her lips curled into a tight line as she stirred her tea. She's in the building now, she said. An employee. She's not just an employee, one of the men muttered. She's being groomed for leadership. Elizabeth's jaw clenched. Wesley is not thinking clearly. That girl, she's a threat. To what? The younger man asked. To our name, our reputation, everything this company was built on. The older board member sipped his drink. Maybe what it was built on needs to change. Elizabeth's eyes sharpened. Change doesn't come from dragging in strays off the street. Oh, she saved his life, the younger man reminded her. Elizabeth stood abruptly. And now she's rewriting his future. There was a beat of silence. Then the older man said, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Elizabeth's stare could have frozen fire. If she doesn't leave on her own, I'll make sure she does. Later that week, Maya sat with Wesley in his office reviewing files for the Foundation's first project restoring and funding after-school programs in underfunded schools across the Bronx and Queens. Her eyes lit up as she flipped through each proposal. "You really want to do this?" she asked. "No photo ops? No press?" He shook his head. "No headlines. Just results." She looked up at him. "You've changed." Wesley shrugged. "Maybe I just finally came back to myself." Their eyes lingered a moment too long. The air shifted familiar, but unspoken. Then came a knock. David entered, clearing his throat. "Sir, Miss Carter is here." Wesley blinked. "Mother?" David nodded. "Send her in." Maya stood quickly, gathering her papers. "I'll give you two some space." But before she could leave, Elizabeth swept in. She wore an ivory coat, a brooch the size of a peach pit gleaming against her collar. Her eyes fell on Maya, and her lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Still here," she said coldly. Wesley stepped between them. "Mother, you're not welcome to speak to her that way." Elizabeth arched an eyebrow. "I speak how I wish." Wesley's voice turned hard. "Not in this office." Maya's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice even. "I'll be in the hallway." "No," Wesley said firmly. "Stay." Elizabeth's eyes darted between them. "So, it's official then? You've replaced grief with a project." "She's not a project," Wesley snapped. "She's a partner, and if you can't accept that, then we have nothing more to say." For a split second, Elizabeth's mask cracked. Her son, her carefully polished, obedient son, was no longer standing behind her. He was standing against her, her eyes cut back to Maya. "You think this world will let you stay? That you can keep your hands clean while swimming with sharks?" Maya met her stare, calm, strong. "I don't swim, Miss Carter. I walk through storms." A tense silence. Then Elizabeth turned and walked out. Wesley ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry." "You keep apologizing for her," Maya said. "But you don't need to." He looked at her, truly looked. "What do I need to do then?" Maya picked up her papers and gave a small smile. "Just keep walking beside me." 2 months passed. Autumn crept into the city with crisp winds and a fire-hued sky. Leaves fell in lazy spirals onto sidewalks, as if time itself had slowed to watch the colors shift. But inside the Carter Foundation offices, the pace only quickened. Maya sat at her desk reviewing the final rollout plan for the pilot school initiative in Queens funding after-school programs, music education, and mentorship opportunities for underprivileged kids. Her team had poured everything into it. For Maya, it wasn't just paperwork, it was redemption. Every form, every budget line felt like an answer to the questions life had shouted at her for years. Wesley had given her the keys. She was driving the mission now. Not as a symbol, not as a charity case, but as a leader. Still, the weight of it all sometimes felt like a shadow trailing behind her, especially when the board wasn't watching her the way they watched Wesley. The way Elizabeth still watched her. That morning, Maya was scheduled to present the project at the monthly board meeting. Not Wesley, her. She stood at the head of the polished oak table, the room filled with gray suits, cautious eyes, and passive-aggressive smiles. She wore navy again, it had become her armor. "Good morning," she began, voice calm. "I know some of you still think of me as the woman who saved Mr. Carter. But today, I'd like you to think of me as something else. The woman who's here to help us save others." Now, that earned her a few raised brows. She clicked through the presentation. Data. Impact metrics. Stories from schools already being prepped for the pilot launch. Photos of children drawing, laughing, studying, all from communities that had been forgotten for far too long. "This is not just a charity project," Maya said. "This is an investment in future leaders, and I'm here to tell you it's already working." As she concluded, there was a brief silence. Then, from the back, came slow, deliberate applause. Wesley. He stood, clapping genuinely, not to fill air, but because he believed. One by one, board members joined in. Even the reluctant ones. Even those Elizabeth had whispered to. Maya let herself breathe. Later that day, in the quiet of the elevator heading back to their offices, Wesley turned to her. "You killed it in there." She smirked. I wasn't sure I would. I was. She looked at him, eyes playful but searching. You always this confident in people you just met a few months ago? He leaned closer. Only when they change my life. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. Neither moved. There was a long, charged pause. Then Maya stepped out, and he followed. That night, she returned home late. Olivia was already asleep, the television humming softly in the corner. Maya moved quietly through the apartment, hanging up her coat, setting down her folder. But as she opened the fridge, she noticed something on the counter. A letter, no return address. Just her name, scrawled in an elegant hand. She frowned and opened it. You don't belong in his world. Leave now, before you're forced to. People like you are meant to serve, not sit at the table. There was no signature, but Maya didn't need one. Her stomach tightened, not because of fear but because of fury. She had tasted respect, earned it, built it with her own hands. And now someone Elizabeth, most likely, was trying to tear it down. She sat at the table, reading the note again, then slowly folded it and tucked it into her drawer, not to forget, but to remember. She wouldn't tell Wesley. Not yet. Some battles, she'd learned, you fought in silence. But the fire in her chest said one thing clearly. I'm not going anywhere. The following morning, Maya walked into the office early. She had a new goal. Expand the project into Harlem, into the very neighborhood where she'd pulled Wesley Carter back from the edge, where she'd grown up, where she'd learned how to survive. She typed up the proposal herself, created the pitch deck. She worked through lunch and stayed late. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Wesley knocked gently on her door. You okay? He asked. I'm more than okay. He stepped inside. You've barely left this office in 2 days. I have an idea, she said, spinning her laptop toward him. Harlem. We start there next. Wesley's eyes scanned the document. His brow lifted in surprise. This is good. It's home. He met her gaze. Then, it's where we go next. There was a pause. Then he added, Maya, I got a call this morning. From a reporter. They're asking questions about you. Your past. Your mom. Your job at Mel's. Someone's feeding them information. Maya's expression didn't change. She expected this. It's a warning shot, she said. I can shut it down. She shook her head. No, let them write what they want. I'm not ashamed of where I come from. His voice lowered. They're not writing it for you. She stood slowly, walking to the window. The city blinked below, chaotic, messy, alive. They can try to drag my name, she said, but they can't rewrite my story. I earned this, and I'm not backing down. He joined her at the window. You never do. She turned toward him. Neither do you. Another pause. Then Wesley said softly, I meant what I said that night. About beginnings. Maya's eyes searched his face. This doesn't feel like the end of something, he continued. It feels like the start. Of what? Whatever we're brave enough to build. The morning news hit harder than a slap. Maya had just stepped off the subway, the crisp wind tugging at her coat, when her phone buzzed with an alert. Then another, then another. She glanced down, breaking. From waitress to Carter's closest confidante, who is Maya William. Black Cinderella or corporate manipulator. Inside the rise of Maya William. Sources claim Maya used sympathy and strategy to climb the Carter empire. Her breath caught in her throat. At first, she laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. The kind of laugh people let out when they've been insulted by something so absurd, it circles back to dangerous. But as she scrolled, it became clear. This wasn't just idle gossip. It was coordinated. Photos, timelines, anonymous insiders, her time at Mel's, Olivia's health, even a half-warped quote from her former landlord about late rent and loud company. It was meant to break her. Instead, it lit something in her chest. She walked into the Carter Foundation building with her shoulders squared, head high. The receptionist gave her a look curious, maybe even pitying, but Maya didn't slow. Let them stare. Let them watch. She had nothing to hide. Wesley slammed the door behind him. Who gave them this? David stood at the edge of the office, tablet in hand. The source was listed as confidential. But the angle, the timing, It reeks of your mother's influence." Wesley muttered a curse under his breath. "She crossed a line." "She didn't just cross it," David said quietly. "She set it on fire." Wesley ran a hand through his hair. "Get PR on the phone. Draft a statement. Clear. Firm. No spin. I won't let her tear Maya down." "Oh." David didn't move. "What?" Wesley snapped. David hesitated. "You sure that's the right move?" "I'm not staying silent. I'm not saying you should, but Maya might not want to be spoken for." Wesley blinked, then slowly sat down. He hadn't thought of that. Meanwhile, Maya sat alone in her office, blinds drawn. Her laptop blinked with unread emails. Her phone buzzed with missed calls. But she stared at neither. She stared at the photo on her desk, her and Olivia on the day she graduated from her nursing program, before the accident. Before everything changed. Maya in borrowed shoes, Olivia in her Sunday hat, both of them smiling like they didn't know what life had planned. A soft knock broke the silence. Wesley stepped in, gently closing the door behind him. "I wanted you to hear it from me," he said. "We traced the leak. It came from a shell contact attached to a PR firm my mother uses." "It was her." Maya nodded, unsurprised. "I'm going to the board. We'll issue a public response." "Don't," Maya cut him off. Wesley blinked. "Don't? I don't want you fighting this battle for me." His brow furrowed. "But it's my company, and it's my life," she said firmly. "I don't want to be your next press war, your next damage control strategy." Wesley's jaw worked. "You think that's all this is? I think you're trying to fix it the only way you know how. With power, with influence. But that's not how I survived Harlem. That's not how I survived her." He stepped back, quiet for a moment. Then softly, "What do you want to do?" Maya looked him dead in the eyes. "I want to speak. In my voice. On my terms." Wesley slowly nodded. "Then we'll make that happen." That evening, Maya recorded a video. No makeup, no PR team, no lights or filters, just her and her truth. She sat in a small room, a single lamp casting warm shadows across her face. "I'm Maya William," she began, "and I didn't come from privilege. I came from Harlem. My mother raised me on tips and hope. I've been a waitress, a caregiver, and for one terrifying moment I was the stranger who found Wesley Carter collapsed on a sidewalk. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he needed help." She paused, steady. "I didn't rescue him to get a job. I didn't stay by his side to climb a ladder. I did it because someone needed to, and I'd do it again." Another breath. "People are saying I don't belong here. That I must have used something pity, manipulation, race to get where I am. But I'll tell you what I did use. Grit, honesty, and work no one saw but everyone benefited from." She looked directly into the lens. "Some people think women like me should stay quiet, stay grateful, stay small, but I won't. I won't hide where I come from. I won't apologize for being here. And I will not let anyone decide the value of my voice." A pause. "If that makes you uncomfortable, good. Growth usually does." The video went live the next morning. By noon, it had 2 million views. By nightfall, it had 10. The comment section flooded with messages from teachers, nurses, janitors, single mothers, and young black women who saw themselves in her. Not as victims, but as mirrors. Strong, unapologetic, unshakable. Number "We See Maya" started trending, and behind closed doors, the board of Carter Global held an emergency meeting not about firing her, but about elevating her. Because she hadn't just survived the storm, she became it. At the end of the day, Maya sat across from Wesley in the quiet of his office. He reached out, gently brushing her hand. "You were extraordinary." "I was honest," she said. "Same thing." They sat together, the city glowing behind them. "You know," Maya murmured, "when I found you on that sidewalk, I thought I was saving you." "You did. But maybe," she whispered, "you were sent to save me too." And in that moment, they understood something neither of them had dared say aloud. This wasn't just about justice. It was about becoming. The Carter Foundation's Harlem Project launched under a soft, honey-colored sky. The smell of roasted peanuts, fried plantains, and the faint echo of jazz carried through the street. wrapping the ribbon-cutting ceremony in warmth and memory. Maya stood on the small stage in front of the community center, dressed simply but sharply in a maroon blazer and slacks. The air was alive with people, teachers, parents, city workers, local reporters, but her gaze kept drifting to one face near the back of the crowd. Olivia, in a wheelchair now, wrapped in her favorite blue shawl, a smile tugging at her lips. Pride shone in her eyes. The kind of pride that said, "You did it, baby. You did it the right way." Wesley stood beside Olivia, his hands in his coat pockets, quiet but present, always present. When Maya took the mic, the chatter died down. "I grew up 3 blocks from here," she began, voice steady. "I used to walk past this building on my way to school. It was a shut-down rec center back then. Broken windows, empty halls, a place people forgot." She paused, letting her words settle. "Today, we reopen it as a center for growth, for education, for safety, for kids like the girl I used to be, who need a place to dream out loud." Applause followed, but it wasn't polite, it was real. It rolled through the street like a heartbeat, and Maya, for the first time, didn't flinch at the sound of being seen. She walked off the stage into a sea of hugs, handshakes, and teary thank yous. A group of middle schoolers surrounded her, asking about the computer lab, the music studio, the after-school snacks. Maya laughed and answered every question, but even amid the joy, a shadow waited. Across the street, in a dark car with tinted windows, Elizabeth Carter watched it all unfold. The community, the cameras, the cheering, and her son, standing beside her. This wasn't a phase. It wasn't gratitude or obligation. It was loyalty. Worse, love. The man who once called her the most important woman in his world now looked at another woman with eyes she'd never seen. Beside her, her attorney shifted in his seat. "Ma'am, if we're going to contest the trust restructuring, we need to act now." Elizabeth's voice was ice. "Let them have their little victory." He blinked. "I thought we were." "We are," she said sharply. "But sometimes, you don't kill a flower by cutting it down. You poison the roots." That evening, back at the Foundation's office, Maya flipped through the thank you notes from the school kids, crayon drawings of her face. Notes like, "You make me believe in grown-ups," and, "Miss Maya, can I be like you when I grow up?" She felt the lump in her throat before she could swallow it back. She wasn't just a face on a press release. She was a symbol now, and symbols didn't get to rest. Wesley stepped in, holding 2 paper plates from the after-party, fried chicken, mac and cheese, and peach cobbler for dessert. "I thought you'd be starving." Maya grinned. "You know me too well." He set the plates down, then pulled a folded document from his pocket. "What's that?" she asked. "My lawyer drafted something," he said. "It's just the first draft. But I'm putting your name on the Foundation charter, as co-chair." Maya stared at him. "I don't want a token title," she said. "You wouldn't be," he replied. "You'd be leading it, officially, permanently." She looked down at the paper. Her name, in ink, side by side with his. "I need time," she whispered. "You've got it." But before either of them could say more, Maya's phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number, again. She sighed and answered. "Hello?" A familiar voice rasped on the line. Low, confident, cold. "You should be careful, Miss William. Some people don't like watching you rise." Click. The line went dead. Maya stared at the screen, heart pounding. That voice, it wasn't Wesley's mother. It was someone else. Someone powerful. Someone watching. She set the phone down slowly. "What is it?" Wesley asked, sensing her shift. She looked up at him. "I think we just stepped into a deeper game." That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat by Olivia's bed, watching her mother breathe. The TV played an old Western, but Maya didn't hear it. She kept replaying the voice, the words. "You should be careful." There was something in the tone, not a threat. A promise. She rose quietly, walked to the window, and looked out over Harlem. So much had changed. So many doors had opened. But she knew one thing now for sure. The higher you climb, the more the wind tries to push you off. But she wasn't climbing for herself anymore. She was climbing for every girl like her, and she wasn't about to let anyone shake her loose. The next morning began with silence, thick, heavy, and unnatural. Maya arrived at the Carter Foundation just after 7. The building was unusually quiet. No one at the front desk. No music drifting from the intern's corner. The air smelled of polished marble and tension. As she reached her office, she found David pacing outside Wesley's door, phone pressed to his ear. His eyes caught hers, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked rattled. "Maya," he said, hanging up, "we need to talk." "What's going on?" He exhaled. "There was a break-in. Last night, someone accessed the Foundation's private server." Her stomach dropped. "What was taken?" "Donor records, financial statements, internal memos including a few involving your appointment as co-chair." Her mind raced. Why would anyone care about that? David hesitated. Because they weren't just accessed. They were leaked. By noon, headlines had exploded. Carter Foundation under fire. Allegations of nepotism and financial mismanagement. Black Cinderella's castle cracking. Exclusive. Maya Williams' accelerated rise raises questions from insiders. The narrative wasn't just back, it had mutated. They weren't just accusing her of climbing too fast. Now, they were accusing her of cheating to get there. That afternoon, Maya sat across from Wesley in the conference room, surrounded by lawyers, advisors, and the Foundation's crisis team. Everyone spoke at once: legal options, defamation suits, internal audits, but Wesley wasn't listening to any of them. He was watching her. Maya, still, silent, eyes steady. When the room cleared for a break, Wesley leaned forward. "This is an attack. I know. We'll shut it down." "I know," she said again, then softer, "but not by hiding behind lawyers." He nodded, letting the silence between them speak what neither had time to voice. "This isn't about bad press, it's war." That evening, Maya walked home through the back streets of Harlem. No car, no security. Just her thoughts and the chill in the wind. She stopped at a mural on the side of an old building, one she passed every day without noticing. It showed a black mother holding her son, both of them looking up at a sky full of stars. Below them, in fading paint, a phrase was scrawled: "Rise slow but rise strong." Maya stared at it for a long time. She remembered the burn of scrubbing diner floors, the weight of Olivia's hospital bills, the sting of Elizabeth Carter's slap, the hollow echo of that voicemail. This wasn't new. People had always tried to write her story for her, but not anymore. The next morning, she walked into the Foundation wearing a deep green dress, hair braided down her back, no makeup. Her presence turned heads. Not because of the outfit, but because she was still here. Wesley was in his office, flanked by 2 lawyers. When she entered, he stood quickly. "They're issuing subpoenas now. It's getting ugly. If you want to step back." "I'm stepping forward," she said. He stared at her. "I want a press conference," she continued. "Not just a statement. Live. Unfiltered. No spin." Wesley raised a brow. "That's risky." "So is silence." He searched her eyes. "You sure?" "I've never been more sure." The room was packed. Journalists. Activists. Investors. Even a few city officials. Cameras buzzed. Microphones lined up like rifles. The podium stood in front of the Carter Foundation seal. Maya stepped up alone. "I won't waste your time," she began. "Because mine's been wasted enough explaining my worth." She paused, locking eyes with the crowd. "You want to know how I got here? I earned it. You want to know why my name's on this building? Because I showed up, stayed up, and stood up when no one else would." The flash of cameras. "You can dig through my past all you want. I won't apologize for surviving. I won't apologize for being black. And I damn sure won't apologize for being here." A few gasps, a few cheers. This isn't about money. It's about legacy. About building something that lasts without excluding the very people it claims to serve. And finally, "You can't scare me out of this room. I was raised in fire. I am fire." She stepped away from the mic, and the room erupted, not in chaos but in applause, a thunder that rolled and rolled. That night, Wesley found her on the rooftop of the building. She stood at the edge, wind pulling at her dress, city lights blinking like stars. He stepped beside her. "You burned the whole room down." She smiled. "Sometimes you have to." You didn't just survive the attack, he said. You turned it into a platform. She turned toward him, searching his face. And you? You still sure about me being beside you? He didn't hesitate. More sure than ever. Libre. They stood there in silence, not needing to name what was between them. The storm had passed, but they both knew. Others were coming, and next time, they'd face them together. The first snow of winter came like a quiet promise, soft, gentle. But beneath its beauty, the city pulsed with tension. The fallout from the leak hadn't disappeared, despite Maya's powerful press conference. The media shifted their tone. Sure, but not everyone was ready to forget, or forgive. Maya sat alone in the Carter Foundation library late that evening. The warmth of the fireplace flickered across the high ceilings, casting gold light over the room's historic oak panels and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. She wore a thick gray sweater and jeans, comfort clothes, not armor. In her lap was a thick binder of letters. Real letters. Not emails. Not tweets. Actual handwritten notes mailed from across the country. A veteran in Missouri. A retired school teacher in Philadelphia. A pastor's wife from Birmingham. Each letter told her the same thing. We see you. We've been you. Keep going. But one letter made her hands shake. It was short, tidy, formal. Miss William, I was wrong. I saw what I feared. Not what you truly are. I'm not ready to welcome you, but I am ready to stop standing in your way. Elizabeth Carter. Maya stared at the signature for a long time. Progress wasn't always pretty, but sometimes, even the harshest hearts cracked when truth refused to bow. The next morning, Maya joined Wesley in his office. Snow still clung to his coat. He looked up from his desk, holding a tablet. You saw it? I did. Surprised? Yes, she said, but not moved. He smiled slightly. That's fair. Maya took a deep breath. I think it's time. Wesley raised an eyebrow. Time for what? For the foundation to go national. He blinked. That's a big move. We have the model. We have the data. And now we have the platform. Let's build 10 centers. In 10 cities. Let's bring in local leaders. Let's make this bigger than us. He sat back in his chair, studying her. I was going to suggest the same thing, he said, but I didn't want to push. You're not pushing, she said. You're walking beside me. He nodded slowly, a rare softness filling his voice. Always. They spent the next several hours laying out the blueprint. Cities with underserved communities, connections in Atlanta, Detroit, Baltimore, Phoenix. Maya wanted each center to be run by locals, people who lived the reality, not studied it from afar. And Wesley? Let her lead. That evening, Maya returned home to find Olivia humming in the kitchen, stirring something sweet on the stove. Peach cobbler? Maya guessed. Mm-hmm, Olivia replied. Cold weather calls for warm hearts. No. Maya kissed her cheek. You okay, Mama? Olivia nodded. Better than I've been in years. That Dr. Wesley sent over? Miracle worker. I can move my shoulder again. Maya smiled, but her heart tensed. I never asked how you felt about everything. You mean him? Olivia stirred slowly. He's not what I expected. But you're more than I dreamed. There was a pause. Then Olivia added softly, just be careful. Power doesn't always come wrapped in violence. Sometimes it shows up wearing a suit and handing you a microphone. Maya absorbed that, nodded. I'll remember, but danger doesn't knock with fanfare. It whispers, and it had begun whispering again. Somewhere in a corner office far from Harlem, a phone buzzed. A man in a navy suit answered. She's growing, said the voice on the line. I know. She's dangerous now. I know. There was a pause. Do it quietly. The man hung up, stood, and walked to the window. Below, the city sparkled so alive, so full of noise. But here, in the hush of marble and glass, decisions were made that echoed like thunder, and Maya William had just become someone's target. The following week, as Maya wrapped a call with a city councilwoman from Atlanta, David knocked on her office door. He looked uneasy. What is it? Maya asked. We received a letter from the IRS. Her heart stilled. About what? An audit of your personal finances. I pay my taxes. I know. But they're flagging your Mel's Diner earnings from 4 years ago, claiming misreported income. Maya stood slowly. That's nonsense. It's not just the IRS, David said carefully. There are whispers. Someone's trying to build a case. A case? She echoed. Fraud, exploitation, misuse of nonprofit funds. None of it true, but it's coming. She paced the room, mind racing. This is coordinated. They're trying to tear me down legally now. Yes, David said, and it won't stop unless we find out who's behind it. That night, Wesley found her on the roof again, arms folded against the cold. I heard, he said. I'm not scared, she replied. Good, because we're going to war. Maya turned to him. I don't want to win this with lawyers. I want to win it with truth. And you will. They stood together, quiet in the snow. Then Wesley said, There's one more thing. My attorney found something. The leak? The IRS tip? It all traces back to someone we know. Maya's brow furrowed. Who? He hesitated. Your old landlord, the one from Mel's Diner. He's been paid, handsomely. Maya's jaw tightened. She hadn't spoken to that man in years. Why would he? Wesley shook his head. Some people don't need a reason. Just a price. Maya exhaled sharply, pain and fire rising together. Then we give them something money can't touch. What's that? Truth. Public. Loud. Unapologetic. Wesley nodded. Let's do it. And as snow swirled around them, two silhouettes stood firm in the cold, undaunted, unshaken, and unafraid. Because storms don't break women like Maya. They build them. They called it a smear campaign. But Maya knew better. It was an erasure campaign meant to strip her story of dignity, to rip her from the very place she'd earned, brick by painstaking brick. It wasn't just about lies, it was about rewriting truth, turning her rise into a scandal, turning her name into a whisper. But Maya William was not a whisper. She was thunder waiting for the right sky. 3 days after the audit notice, Maya and Wesley sat in front of a rolling camera in the Foundation's media studio, this time for a live-streamed address. No edits. No filters. Just raw reality. Maya wore white, not for purity but for defiance. Let them try to stain this, she'd said. Wesley sat beside her, but slightly behind by her design. The spotlight, this time, was hers. She faced the camera, took a breath, and began. My name is Maya William. I've been a waitress, a caregiver, a project lead, and now co-chair of the Carter Foundation. I've also been accused, investigated, slandered, and threatened. She folded her hands, eyes unwavering. I've been poor. I've been overlooked. I've been talked down to, spit on, and told I don't belong. And you know what? I still came back. Every single time. The live chat feed exploded. Hearts, fire emojis, and names, people saying, I'm with you. Wesley stepped forward then. I'm Wesley Carter. And I built this foundation on the idea that community is stronger than control. That justice matters more than legacy. That's why I didn't just hire Maya, I followed her. Because she isn't just an employee, she's a compass. He looked at her, then back at the camera. And if you're trying to remove her, you'll have to remove me too. Maya looked into the lens and said the words she'd carried for weeks. We are not just defending our reputation. We are defending the idea that people from any zip code, of any skin tone, can lead with integrity. And then, to whoever is trying to break me, thank you. You've reminded me who I fight for. The feed cut. The video went viral in 6 minutes. The retaliation came fast. 2 days later, Maya's apartment building was vandalized. Slurs, graffiti, a broken window. Olivia's room. Maya found her mother in tears, clutching a photo album that had fallen in the chaos. We were quiet, Olivia whispered. We didn't bother nobody. Maya called the police. They came, they wrote the report, they left, but she knew nothing would come of it. Later that night, Olivia looked at her and said, They're trying to scare us back into smallness. Maya replied, Then we make being seen our act of rebellion. Meanwhile, David and Wesley were uncovering more. The audit had been ordered by a mid-level agent, with connections to a private investigative firm, one known to work for political influencers. Tracing the money led them to a hedge fund. And the hedge fund? was one of the Carter family's largest competitors, a name Wesley hadn't heard in years. Douglas Granger, an old rival of Wesley's late father, wealthy, ruthless, and known to use whispers instead of weapons. Granger didn't want Maya gone because she was black or poor. He wanted her gone because she made Wesley stronger, and that, to a man like Granger, was unacceptable. On a freezing Thursday morning, Wesley stood in his penthouse kitchen, gripping the coffee pot like it owed him answers. Maya stepped in, coat still on, cheeks flushed from the wind. "You heard?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Granger." She nodded. "So now what?" Wesley looked at her, really looked. "Now we stop playing defense." He handed her a thick folder. "What's this?" "A full portfolio. Granger's backdoor deals, his tax games, everything my father collected before he died." Maya opened the folder, flipping through the files. "This is a grenade." Wesley's voice was calm. "Only if we pull the pin." She closed it gently. "Let's do it right. Not dirty. Not messy. We expose it the right way." He nodded. "Through the Harlem Journal." Maya blinked. "Local press?" "Exactly," Wesley said. "Granger won't see it coming, and they'll tell it truthfully. No agenda." Over the next 72 hours, Maya met with investigative reporters, handed over files, and offered background without ever making herself the center. By Monday, the Harlem Journal's headline read, "Power and Poison: How Douglas Granger Manipulated IRS Channels to Silence Social Change." It spread like wildfire, and this time Maya didn't need to speak. The city did it for her. News outlets picked it up. Investigations were launched. Granger's firm lost 2 major investors in a single day. But more importantly, people believed her. That evening, Olivia made chicken and dumplings and insisted on Maya sitting down to eat for once. "You took a beating," she said, ladling stew into her daughter's bowl. Maya smiled. "But I'm still standing." Olivia chuckled. "You're not standing, baby. You're leading." As Maya spooned the first bite, her phone buzzed. "Wesley." She picked up. "Turn on Channel 4, he said, voice buzzing with energy. She did. A special segment was airing, a panel of political analysts and social leaders discussing the week's biggest story. And there it was, a headline she never imagined seeing. "Is Maya William the future of community leadership in America?" Her spoon paused midair, not because she wanted fame, but because the idea of her, the waitress, the maid, the Harlem girl, was now being considered as a symbol of hope. She exhaled slowly. The war wasn't over, but this battle, she had won. The following morning, Harlem didn't wake up, it rose. Maya stepped out of her brownstone to find the street buzzing. Neighbors she'd never formally met waved from stoops. Kids on bikes called her name, even old Mr. Thompson from the corner shop, who hadn't spoken more than 3 words to her in 2 years, tipped his hat and said, "We proud of you, Miss Maya." She wasn't just a name anymore. She was their name, their proof, their fighter, their daughter. But the recognition came with weight, one Maya carried with a quiet grace, even when her shoulders ached beneath it. At the Carter Foundation, the air had shifted. The mood among staff was more than supportive. It was protective. People paused to offer coffee, encouragement, and quiet nods that said, "We've got you." But Maya remained focused. She called an emergency meeting with her core team, Wesley, David, and 2 new community directors from Detroit and Baltimore. Her voice was firm as she laid it out. "We've stabilized Harlem, but now we go forward. I want our next 2 centers open in 6 months. No red tape, no delays." Wesley looked impressed. "You're ready to expand?" Maya smiled. "I was born to expand." David chuckled. "That's going on the wall." Wesley asked, "And the press? They'll want interviews." "I'll give them what matters," she said. "But I'm not becoming a celebrity. I'm building infrastructure." Then she stood, signaling the meeting's end. "Let's get to work." Later that afternoon, Maya visited the Harlem Center's mentorship room. Dozens of teens were in session with local artists, financial literacy coaches, and mental health advisors. One girl stood out, 17, quiet, braids, eyes like Maya's when she was younger, sharp and tired at the same time. Maya knelt beside her. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm Maya." "I know who you are," the girl replied, guarded. "You don't have to like me," Maya said. but I'm here if you ever want to talk. The girl hesitated, then asked, "Why do you care?" Maya smiled. "Because someone cared enough to give me a second chance once. I want to be that first chance for someone else." The girl didn't say anything, but when Maya stood to leave, she quietly reached out and touched her hand. It was small, fleeting, but Maya felt it in her bones. Hope. Meanwhile, in a boardroom far from Harlem, Elizabeth Carter sat with a copy of the Harlem Journal folded on her lap. Across from her sat her financial advisor, a stiff man in a gray vest who chose his words like surgical instruments. "She's winning," he said simply. Elizabeth's jaw clenched. "She's lucky." "No," he said. "She's strategic. She played your son's name to gain power, then turned that power into purpose. It's hard to attack someone doing good work." Elizabeth's lip curled. "Then we discredit the work." The advisor raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, she's made it personal. I'll make it political." Back at the foundation, Wesley stood by Maya's office door, watching her from the hallway. She was at her desk, papers everywhere. Phone tucked to her shoulder as she spoke with a school principal in Detroit. She looked like she belonged, like she'd always belonged. Later, when she hung up, Wesley finally walked in. "You know," he said, "you've completely taken over this place." She looked up with a grin. "That's what a co-chair does." He approached slowly, his voice lowering. "That's what a leader does." There was a moment between them, heavy, electric, warm. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. Velvet. Simple. Her eyes widened. "Wesley." "It's not a ring," he said quickly. "Not yet." Her shoulders relaxed, and she smiled. "But it is something," he continued. "Something real, something permanent." He opened the box to reveal a necklace, a single pendant in the shape of a phoenix. Maya stared. "It rises from fire," he said, "like you." She took it carefully, then looked up at him. "Thank you," she whispered. But he wasn't done. "There's one more thing," he added. He handed her a document. She unfolded it slowly. A legal agreement making Maya a full 50% stakeholder in the Carter Foundation. Her breath caught. "You're giving me half?" "I'm recognizing the half that's already yours." She stared at the paper, and for the first time in her life, Maya William felt seen not as a risk, a role, or a charity case, but as a partner, as a power. That night, after Olivia had gone to bed, Maya sat alone in the kitchen, necklace around her neck, legal document folded in her pocket. The heater rattled. Outside, snow danced across the window panes. She picked up a pen and wrote one sentence in her old journal. "They tried to bury me in shame but didn't know I was planting something." She closed the journal and exhaled. Tomorrow, there would be more battles. But tonight, she belonged. The attack came when the city was most distracted Christmas week. Lights twinkled across Harlem. Church bells rang faintly in the distance. Storefronts were dusted in snow and wrapped in red ribbons. But beneath the cheer, someone had lit a slow-burning fuse. It began with a whistleblower, a faceless email sent to every major New York media outlet. Subject line: "The real story behind Maya William and the Carter Foundation." Attached was a PDF containing forged documents, doctored emails, and manipulated bank records. The goal was clear: to imply Maya had embezzled money from the foundation and used her influence to secure a luxury condo under a fake name. It was fake, all of it, but that didn't matter. Because in America, especially for women who look like Maya, accusation always comes before evidence. She found out at 5:47 a.m. Her phone buzzed violently beside her bed. Multiple calls, texts, missed voicemails. When she finally picked up, David's voice was tight. "They published it." Maya sat upright. "What?" "Check your email. The Times, the Tribune, local outlets. It's everywhere." She didn't need to check. She already knew. She felt it in her chest, the familiar tightening, the same one she'd felt when they painted her a thief before, when she was a waitress barely making rent, when white customers left fake complaints to get her fired. History always tried to repeat itself. But this time, she wasn't going to let it. 2 hours later, she was at the foundation headquarters, eyes tired, but posture straight. Olivia insisted on coming, too, wrapped in her thick winter coat and walking slowly with her cane. She sat quietly in Maya's office, watching her daughter pace. "You're going to fight this, right?" Olivia finally asked. Maya looked at her. I have to. You're not that girl who used to hide in the corner anymore. No, Maya agreed. Now I own the room. She turned to David and Wesley, who had already begun damage control statements drafted, legal team activated, media advisors briefed. But Maya raised her hand. No spin. No soft words. Wesley narrowed his eyes. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we show our books. David blinked. All of them? All of them, Maya said. Total transparency. Let the public see every number, every donation, every dollar spent. We have nothing to hide. Wesley hesitated, then nodded. Okay. We go nuclear. Within 24 hours, the Carter Foundation launched a full digital portal called The Ledger. Every financial record from the past 3 years, available to the public, color-coded, searchable, verified by a third-party auditor. It was revolutionary in its transparency and completely unplanned. The media flipped. What is she doing? One anchor on a conservative network asked. This is either the boldest move of the year or the most foolish. But the people? They responded with fire. Number, we believe. Maya trended on Twitter. Community leaders, teachers, veterans, single mothers, all sharing how Maya's work had touched their lives. Local business owners posted videos holding up their receipts. Teens from Harlem wore shirts that read, "Transparency is power." And just like that, the smear began to unravel. That Sunday, Maya stood in front of the New Hope Church congregation. Pastor Daniels had invited her to speak not just to defend herself, but to tell her story. She walked slowly to the pulpit, every pew packed. Olivia sat in the front row, eyes filled with tears. I was told I should wait to speak, Maya began, her voice calm. That I should let the lawyers handle it. That if I stayed quiet, it would pass. She paused. But silence is what they're counting on. The room leaned in. I'm not here to prove I'm clean. I know I'm clean. I'm here to say that no matter how far you rise, someone will always try to drag you back to the version of yourself they can control. The congregation hummed in agreement. They can take my name through the mud. They can spin lies. But they can't take away the truth. They can't take away you, the community that stood behind me when no one else would. She pointed to the crowd. I'm not just defending my name. I'm defending our future. Because if they can destroy me, they'll destroy the next Maya, and the one after that. Applause burst from every row. Olivia clutched her cane tightly, proud and trembling. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Carter watched the live stream from her estate. She sat alone in her sunroom, the screen reflecting in her eyes. She doesn't flinch, she muttered. Her assistant, standing nearby, said nothing. Elizabeth slowly turned off the tablet. She's smarter than I thought. And stronger, her assistant added. Elizabeth's silence was her answer. That night, Wesley and Maya walked through Central Park, wrapped in scarves and quiet. I keep thinking it'll stop, she said. That we'll finally breathe. It will, Wesley said, because we're not chasing peace anymore. We're defining it. She looked up at him. Are you scared? He didn't answer right away. Then, yes, but I'm more scared of not doing this with you. They stopped near the pond, the water still, reflecting the city lights above them. Let them come, Maya whispered. We'll meet them with truth. He took her hand, and in that moment, surrounded by ice and fire, Maya William was no longer someone trying to prove her worth. She was the proof. 2 weeks passed. The wind grew harsher. The streets glistened with patches of ice. But Maya, she was steel now. Hardened not by bitterness, but by truth. The false accusations had failed. The Foundation's financial portal, the Ledger, had gone viral beyond New York. Nonprofits across the country were copying the model. A feature in Forbes called it the gold standard of accountability. Community leaders referred to it as the Maya method. Micros. But even with victory blooming, Maya remained wary. Because snakes don't retreat when you expose them. They regroup. At 6:12 a.m. on a Monday, Maya got a call from David. His voice trembled. They found something. She sat up in bed. Who? The City Audit Committee. Not about the Foundation. About you. She was quiet. It's from your old job. Mel's Diner. 2017. Maya's eyes narrowed. Go on. They're claiming you lied about your income on your W-2. The number you submitted for a housing voucher doesn't match your bank deposits. She closed her eyes. That was 8 years ago. She remembered the struggle. She'd worked double shifts, taken cash tips to survive. The bank account was often overdrawn, receipts crumpled in her purse. Some weeks she hadn't even had a calculator, just prayer. It wasn't fraud, she said quietly. It was chaos. I know, David said, but legally, it's ammunition. Later that morning, Wesley met her at the foundation. He walked into her office and found her standing by the window, arms folded. You don't have to explain, he said. But I want to, she replied. I know you do, but I trust you. That's enough for me. She turned to face him. It's not about me, she said. It's about the pattern. Every time I rise, they dig. And when they dig and still find nothing, they'll start planting lies. She nodded slowly. Then it's time I told the whole story. Wesley frowned. To who? To everyone. That night, Maya sat down with a journalist from the New Yorker. Not for a soundbite, not for a puff piece, but for a profile. The real kind. Where wounds get air, and truths get a platform. The interview lasted 4 hours. Maya told her everything, about her childhood in Newark, her mother's sacrifices, the jobs she lost, the places she lived where roaches crawled in her shoes, the landlord who groped her, the boss who underpaid her, the white coworker who called her lucky to be cute, and the day she found Wesley unconscious in the snow. When I helped him, she said, I didn't think it would change his life. I just thought, maybe I could save someone. The journalist asked gently, and now that someone is you? Maya smiled. Now it's all of us. The profile dropped 5 days later. From Diner to Dynasty, the unbreakable rise of Maya William. It broke records, shared across every platform. Talk shows invited her. Universities wanted her to speak. Oprah's team even called. But Maya refused the spotlight unless it served the work. I'll stand on the stage, she told her team. But only if we shine the light on who's not there yet. Meanwhile, Granger's camp was in chaos. The failed attacks had backfired. His investors were uneasy. His reputation? Tarnished. And worse, one of his internal lawyers had leaked emails showing he did finance the smear campaign against Maya. The final blow came when a former IRS agent admitted under oath that Granger had suggested the 2017 audit. Wesley watched it unfold from his office. Justice, for once, wasn't loud. It was slow, patient, precise. Like Maya, that evening, Maya hosted a private dinner at the Harlem Center. Just staff and volunteers. No cameras. No headlines. Just community. Olivia sat beside her, holding her hand under the table. You did it, she whispered. No, Maya whispered back. We did. She looked around the room at the faces who had stood by her, believed in her, fought for her. David, cracking jokes as he passed out pie. Jamila, the new community director from Baltimore, showing baby pictures. Wesley, laughing like the world had finally exhaled. This wasn't power. This was home. After everyone left, Wesley walked Maya to the door. Snow had just started to fall again. Soft, gentle, like it had the night they met. He looked at her and said, You've changed everything. She tilted her head. I've just begun. They stood in silence for a beat. Then Wesley reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a different velvet box. Maya froze. Is it what I think it is? He opened it. Inside, a simple silver ring, no diamond, just a smooth circle. Elegant, honest, strong. Like her, he didn't kneel. He didn't need to. I don't want to rescue you. I don't want to lead you. I just want to stand beside you. Maya looked at the ring, then at him. I'm not ready yet, she whispered. Not because I'm unsure, but because I want the next yes I say to be forever. Wesley smiled, slipped the box shut. I'll wait. And they walked home together. Under the snowfall, two warriors wrapped in quiet, holy peace. Because sometimes, the greatest victories are not in the courtrooms or headlines. They're in the quiet moments, the ones you fought so hard to earn. The new year began not with fireworks but with clarity. Maya stood on the rooftop of the Harlem Center just before dawn, wrapped in a thick coat, mug of ginger tea warming her hands. The city below was hushed, covered in a thin coat of snow, as if the world itself had paused for breath. She looked out at the skyline, whispered quietly, "We're not surviving anymore. We're building." No. Behind her, the rooftop door creaked open. Wesley stepped out, still in pajamas and coat, hair tousled. "You always talk to the sky before breakfast?" "Only when I'm planning revolutions," she said with a smile. He leaned beside her on the ledge. "You sure you're ready for DC?" Maya exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I am." Just a week after the viral New Yorker profile, Maya had received a formal invitation to testify before the United States Senate Committee on Urban Development and Ethics. It was a rare honor, but more than that, it was a chance to speak truth on record for the people who never got to stand in those marble halls. She and Wesley spent the next few days prepping. Statistics, community outcomes, testimonies from families impacted by her work. Maya insisted on including handwritten letters from teens in the mentorship program. "Let the committee hear real voices," she said. She would not go to Washington with polished PR language. She would go with proof. On the morning of the hearing, Maya stepped out of the Blacktown car in a tailored navy suit and modest heels. No flash, no designer logos. Olivia had hugged her tightly before she left Harlem. "Speak for every woman who's ever been silenced," she had said. "But especially for you." Now, in the wide marbled corridor of Capitol Hill, Maya walked calmly between reporters and lobbyists, ignoring the whispers, the clicking cameras, the skeptical stares. Inside the chamber, senators gathered, some curious, some defensive, some indifferent. But Maya didn't flinch. When she took her seat behind the mic, she looked directly into the rows of politicians and began, "My name is Maya William. I come from Harlem. I was raised by a single mother. I worked at a diner where people left nickels as tips and complaints as power plays. I've been accused, audited, vandalized, and violated, and I'm still here." No one interrupted. She continued, "I'm not here to ask for sympathy. I'm here to ask why truth needs a budget and lies get front-page coverage. Why neighborhoods like mine are expected to be resilient without being resourced. Why the systems that failed us are the same ones that question our integrity when we fix them ourselves." Senators leaned in. "I didn't build the Carter Foundation to impress donors. I built it to survive. And now, I want to help others thrive." She closed her folder and looked up. "You have the power to change how this country invests in its people. Don't ask me how. Let me show you." The room erupted in murmurs. Some were nodding. Some looked shaken. But Maya, she didn't look for their approval. She stood, turned, and walked out with her head high. Back in New York, the impact was immediate. News anchors replayed her testimony for days. Headlines read, "Maya William brings the streets of Harlem to Capitol Hill with elegance and fire." Zero. But more importantly, within weeks, the Senate passed the Urban Equity Acceleration Act, increasing funding for community centers, mentorship programs, and transparency initiatives across underserved areas. One senator later admitted, "That woman didn't lobby us, she convicted us." But not everyone celebrated. Elizabeth Carter watched the hearing from her estate in silence. Jaw clenched. Glass of scotch trembling in her hand. "She's taking my family's name further than we ever did," she whispered. Then she looked at the portrait of her late husband on the wall. "You always said the right leader would come. I just didn't know she'd wear her face." She stood slowly, and for the first time, didn't call her lawyers. That Sunday, Maya returned to New Hope Church with Olivia. The pastor called her to the front, unplanned, no speech prepared. As she stood before the congregation, she said only this, "I thought survival was the end goal. Turns out, survival is the start. Now we build." Together, the room rose in applause, cheers, and tears. And from the balcony, a figure in a dark coat watched silently. Elizabeth Carter. She didn't stay long, but before leaving, she mouthed something Maya saw clearly. "Thank you." Back at the foundation that evening, Maya sat in her office alone. Lights dimmed, scrolling through messages on her phone. One caught her eye, a girl named Simone, from Detroit. "Miss Maya, I used to think girls like me didn't get to dream big. You showed me otherwise. I just got into college. Thank you." Maya closed her eyes. Tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. This was why she kept going. Not for applause, not for revenge, but for the ones who were watching. learning, rising. Outside, the snow fell gently again, and Maya, sitting in the heart of Harlem, knew that her story was no longer just hers. It belonged to every voice that had ever been told to be quiet. And it was only the beginning. Spring arrived early in Harlem. The cold receded like a memory, the wind softened its edge, and the city breathed a little easier. Trees along Lenox Avenue began to bloom, and laughter floated up from front steps and corner stores. For Maya William, the season didn't just mark the end of winter. It marked a beginning, a rebirth, the closing of one life chapter, and the writing of something new, something hers, something earned. The foundation's expansion had exploded. 4 new centers opened in the last 2 months. Detroit, Baltimore, St. Louis, and Jackson. Each one bore the same emblem, a single phoenix etched into the glass doors. A tribute to Maya's journey, a quiet reminder that we rise, again and again. Maya refused to put her name on the buildings. "This isn't about one person," she told reporters. "It's about legacy that outlives us." But people still whispered it with pride. That's the place Maya built. Olivia's health had stabilized, and for the first time in years, she began painting again. She turned their living room into a makeshift studio, splashing blues and golds across canvases, with the same energy Maya now carried into boardrooms and town halls. One evening, Olivia showed Maya her newest piece, an abstract portrait of a black woman standing on a mountaintop, hair wild, face unreadable, but arms wide open. "Is that me?" Maya asked, tilting her head. Olivia smiled. "It's every woman who's ever been told she couldn't, and did anyway." And then, one April morning, a letter arrived. It was official. Maya had been selected to receive the Presidential Medal of Community Leadership. The letter came embossed, signed in blue ink by the president himself. Wesley read it aloud, while Maya sat silently, hands clasped. She wasn't thinking about the cameras, the stage, the speech. She was thinking about the diner, the mop bucket, the hospital hallway, the day she found a man unconscious on the street and chose kindness over convenience. One moment, that's all it took to reroute her life. The award ceremony was held in Washington, on a warm Saturday morning. Maya wore a dark green dress, simple and regal. Wesley walked beside her, proud but unassuming. Olivia sat in the front row, a wide-brimmed hat shielding her from the sun and from public tears. When the president placed the medal around Maya's neck, the crowd stood as one. But Maya didn't smile. Not yet. Not until she turned to the microphone and said, "I accept this not as a finish line, but as a challenge. To every young woman watching, your story matters even when they try to write you out of it. Keep writing anyway." She paused. "And to the country, thank you for seeing me, but don't stop there. See all of us, every voice, every struggle, every dream." She stepped back. The applause rolled over her like a wave. Back in Harlem, celebrations erupted. Someone painted a mural of Maya on the side of the foundation building, her silhouette surrounded by a rising Sunday. Beneath it, in bold letters, "She didn't just rise, she lifted others." That night, Maya and Wesley sat on their stoop. No cameras, no speeches, just the city humming around them. He turned to her, quiet. "So, what now?" She looked up at the stars. "Now we build something even bigger." He raised an eyebrow. "You mean politically?" She smirked. "I mean permanently." In the weeks that followed, Maya quietly began forming a new initiative, the Legacy Project, a national leadership pipeline for women of color in politics, education, and urban planning. Not just mentorship, not just funding, ownership. She recruited lawyers, educators, entrepreneurs, not with promises but with purpose. "You don't have to wait for the door to open," she told them. "We'll build our own building." And then, one Sunday morning, Wesley proposed again. No cameras, no crowd, just a quiet bench by the Hudson River. This time, she said yes, because she wasn't choosing to be saved. She was choosing partnership. They married 6 months later in a garden in upstate New York. Maya wore no veil, just her natural hair, her mother's earrings, and that same silver phoenix pendant Wesley gave her years ago. Olivia walked her down the aisle. The Harlem kids read poems, and the pastor said the words everyone already knew. "This isn't just love, this is legacy." Um, Years later, long after the headlines faded and buildings rose in new cities, a little girl walked through a community center in Chicago and saw Maya's name carved into a plaque. She turned to her mother and asked, "Who was Maya William?" Her mother smiled. She wasn't just someone. She was the someone. The one who changed everything because she refused to stay silent. And far away, in a quiet home in Harlem, Maya sat by the window, gray streaks in her curls, still writing, still planning, still building. Because for Maya William, justice was never a destination. It was a way of walking. Sometimes, the most powerful changes begin with the smallest choices, like stopping to help a stranger on a cold, empty street. Maya William didn't set out to become a symbol of strength or a leader of justice. She simply chose kindness when no one was watching. But in that single act, she discovered what too many are forced to learn. The world will try to define you by your past, your color, your poverty, or your silence. This story teaches us that we don't rise by accident. We rise by grit, by grace, by choosing truth over convenience, by standing up even when we are afraid and staying standing when the world wants us to kneel. Maya's journey is a reminder that integrity doesn't always bring applause, but it always builds legacy. And that legacy is not about buildings, medals, or titles. It's about lifting others with you. So whether you're cleaning tables, running boardrooms, or barely holding it together, remember this: you are not what's been done to you. You are what you choose to become. And if you choose courage, the world will never forget your name.